Yes, you are the main character. But so is everybody else. When every character at the table is the protagonist, how does your character live up to that role? Or more importantly, how do they go about their fair share of the spotlight? Whether your character has clinical social anxiety or is only at peace when in the spotlight, they will shape their adventure alongside others. This is honestly too perfect right now. You'll see by the end of the video why. I love you, demon. I'm Koropo, and through years of ADD and insomnia, I've studied and wondered at many things. So, this is Slumber Myth, a place for that insomnia fuel. In this second episode of the series, we'll go over the social habits of your D&D character. Though this method could be used for any form of creative character building, I really urge you to follow along and build your own character alongside me. So if you have already started one, we can further forge the soul of that character. Segment 1, relatability through vulnerability. Your fellow players love characters that they can empathize with, and vulnerability is what makes this possible. A D&D example that immediately comes to mind is a ranger that refuses to kill animals. Because how is the rest of the party going to react to this? Are they going to be soft and understanding, banding together to forage for edible plants? Or will they be miffed and inconvenienced, uncaring about this sweet detail about the ranger's inner world? Or let's continue to build on examples that I used in episode 1. So, Izuku Midoriya in My Hero Academia, whose hero name ironically is Deku, which in Japanese means good for nothing. There are variant translations, so, take mine with a grain of salt. Anyway, Deku struggles to meet the physical prowess of his allies, at least at first. But eventually, he is able to compensate with clever tactics that he learns thanks to other students at UA, and in particular, Mei Hatsume, a genius engineer and inventor from the support course at the school. Her inventions have aided him in working towards his goal, to be the #1 hero. So it is because of his relationship with Hatsume-san that he is able to personally grow, while aiding the forward motion of the narrative, because she helps his friends too. This example can be translated into interactions that your character has with NPCs and party mates, and it will help you learn more about their skills. What are they bringing to the table? But for an interaction similar to the example, how would your character react to needing help? Would they accept support? Or do they feel too insecure and prideful to accept someone's charity? Would they appreciatively accept and gladly someday return the favor? Or conversely, would they avoid the support so that they don't feel indebted to their supporter? Answering these questions about your character will help you make assertive decisions in key role-playing moments, especially ones that are important for relationship building. Important relationships will shape your character and the future of the whole campaign, as each of your party mates is in the same boat. But note the many forms of relationships and how not all are positive. Parents, siblings, estranged family, healthy rivals, toxic rivals, nemesis, lovers, crushes, idols, role models. The list goes on and on and on. Which of these relationship archetypes would your character be likely to have in their background? Which of these would they be likely to have with party mates or important NPCs? And what vulnerabilities do you think will be exposed in these different types of relationships for your character? Maybe just start unpacking one. Segment 2. The power of complementary relationships. Building bonds with other party members will make your character essential. And to amplify this, seek a relationship of any form with a person in your party that has the most opposite traits from you. Just as complementary colors can bring depth to a painting, the collision of values, opinions, and actions in two opposite characters brings depth to the overall story, and frankly is super entertaining for everyone involved. What kind of opposite do you think your character would react to most? How would they respond to an opposite type of person? Would they hate them because they can't understand them? Would they love them because they're intrigued by their differences? Let's give some examples of complementary relationships. In the pirate campaign, my talented friend Noelle GMs, my vampire character Zenit is a flamboyantly sexual and frivolous being. Over time spent with another character in the party named Iris, a utilitarian, down-to-earth, half-elf ranger, Zenit has decided that Iris is her best friend. And Zenit actually felt that way the day they met, because Iris was the first person in decades that hadn't fallen for Zenit's seductions. Zenit marveled at Iris's reaction to her seduction, and in turn, Zenit's reaction was to have great respect for Iris. More recently, I regret to inform you that Zenit has done something to enrage the entire party, and Iris is distancing herself. And I quote, "Like you would if the family dog attacked you." The complexity of Iris's love and fear will bring turmoil to my sweet vampire that is crushing. Her devolving relationships with all of her party mates is gut-wrenching for me as a player. But from the outside looking in, it's super fun, and it adds so much depth to the overall story, as the connections between one protagonist and all the other protagonists becomes very complex. Their opposing values finally tearing them apart, mostly thanks to Zenit's twisted vampire values. Does your character have any values that others might find offensive? Or to make it more easily translatable, what hot takes do you personally have that you can employ under the guise of your character? And how will your character react when their values aren't shared by their allies? What would you do if the whole party was upset with your character? A hypothetical D&D example would be a rogue who bullies the wizard like an annoying younger sibling, thinking this sort of behavior is acceptable because they grew up in that dynamic and they were bullied by their older brother, who has since passed away. It is because of this that the rogue treats the wizard like shit, and feeling endearing about it, even secretly protects them during battle. This kind of relationship example would leave openings of confrontation from the party over the bullying, inevitably leading to the rogue opening up about their older brother that they miss and how he used to bully them the same way. And this could also lead to the discovery of the rogue's protecting of the wizard as a hidden kindness. So this one detail leaves openings for dynamic changes with every member of the party. Would your character be the kind to bully or be bullied? Are they generally kind, or are they hardened? Or somewhere in between? There are infinite opportunities to plant seeds for complementary relationships to grow in your party. And begin to expand the socialization of your character. To continue using the universe of My Hero Academia, Deku and Bakugo are a brilliant example of this. And personally, I would describe their particular flavor of relationship as a healthy rivalry. Spicy. To offer a classic example, Legolas and Gimli, their toxic rivalry evolved into mutual respect and loyalty. Put simply, this dynamic can be played out when two opposite characters allow their differences to make them grow closer over time. Segment 3. Simple goals, complex journeys. Small, clear goals make characters relatable, allowing openings for other party members and NPCs to pick up on similarities and differences on which to react. A beautiful complexity comes from how they grow together and individually, based on these reactions and chain of reactions. In another D&D example, a druid who wants to save a small forest but instead gets swept up in a kingdom-wide political issue. Or to use another Tolkien example, Samwise Gamgee and his simple goal of protecting Frodo becomes central to the story, and it adds great emotional depth. As mentioned in episode 1, I really recommend that you pick goals that align with your personal interests. This way, they'll feel authentic as your character displays them with your role-playing in the game. If you love emotional drama, pick something tied to family or legacy. What goals does your character have that might intersect with the goals of others? But how will your character react when allies protest your goals? How will you react to opposition by a befriended ally in your party versus how you'll react if a less than favorable member of the party protests your goals? Segment 4. Application for creation. Now, let's go through and answer all these questions to create a profile of our character's social habits, behaviors, and even pathologies. Now, remember to keep your answers authentic to your own feelings while in the form of your character's personal truths. When every character at the table is a protagonist, how does your character live up to that role? And how do they feel about the spotlight? Étoile doesn't speak much, and she's rather aloof, as she's always somewhere else in her mind, thinking of poetry or scolding herself for existing wrong, appreciating the formation of storm clouds. She doesn't think party members are untrustworthy. It's just that she can't help but live mentally in the future, where she believes eventually everyone will leave her or let her down. This anxiety deepens her depression and is the motivation behind the walls that she puts up between herself and the party mates. In-game, this might look like her purposefully trailing at the back of the group during on-foot travel, or sitting on the very edge last seat in the tavern, ready to escape at any moment. She's always ready to leave. She's a good follower and always does what people ask of her, and sometimes even forces a smile. But at least for the beginning of her campaign, she'll largely avoid conversation altogether because she genuinely believes that everyone hates her. And when she does speak without being prompted, it's often an unfortunate truth about the world or a brutally honest observation about one of her party mates. Next question. Would your character accept help? Étoile would likely reject help, I think, because she doesn't feel like she deserves it and she would feel guilty for burdening someone by helping her. That, or, depending on the situation, she would believe that her supporter has ulterior motives. In cases where others successfully helped her, I think that she would be amazed, but then cry or run away out of guilt. And this is because kindness doesn't feel safe to her. Anything that makes her happy outside of her bardic work doesn't feel safe to her. You cannot trust happiness is the insidious lie that her depression forces on her often. Which relationships would your character be likely to have in their background? In her background, Étoile has a mostly healthy family that she's all but estranged herself from. She writes to them just so they know where she is and that she's alive, but she hasn't spoken to her parents or her opposite and twin, Bellamore, in 20 years. You know what? I think it would be really fun in-game for Étoile to have a healthy rivalry with another bard that from the outside looks like a toxic rivalry. Let's make them up real quick. An equally emo-genred poet and lyricist by the name of Thatcher. Thatcher is non-binary and androgynous, and as a cherry on top, let's make them a lycanthrope, just to add a little extra to their gothic emo aesthetic. And their healthy rivalry will appear toxic just because they're both so depressing. But in reality, their competition pushes them to be better at their craft, and in turn, they eventually notice that about themselves, which is very good for them and their brains. Which of these relationships would they be likely to have with party members or important NPCs? What vulnerable behaviors can you see your character having in these? All right, let's make up one more then. Lovers. I think it's fair and realistic for Étoile to have a very long list of lovers that were all pretty much made of red flags. As she doesn't value herself and is tragically lonely, she seeks the attention and affection she craves in the arms of people who value her as much as she does. Now let's give her one. Named Elistat. Elistat is a black tabaxi. We'll say that Elistat instantly fell in love with Étoile when she witnessed one of Étoile's very rare poetry readings at a tavern. They had a passionate, balanced, supportive relationship for 6 months, and then Étoile left because she was afraid of how happy she was. To her, this relationship was something in her life that had the power to hurt her. So she left first, and Elistat was devastated. Moving on. What opposite do you think your character would react to the most? I think Étoile would flip the fuck out if she was confronted by Bellamore. Other than that, boisterously happy and loud people really annoy her. How would they respond to an opposite type of person? If strangers, Étoile would probably just roll her eyes and do her best to avoid them and ignore them. If she's forced to be in their presence or their party mates or something like that, she would just let them do their thing and go elsewhere in her mind, and she'd just stand there answering their questions very shortly, disrespectfully aloof all the while. Would they hate them because they can't understand them? Hate is a strong word that Étoile saves for herself. She's irritated by them and threatened by them and the effortless glee that they wear so easily, and she dislikes them very much. But truthfully, underneath that, her disgust comes from envy. Would they love them because they are intrigued by their differences? It depends on how obnoxious this opposite-like person is. I could see a quiet but happy person having the potential to pique Étoile's interest. What values does your character have that others might find offensive? Étoile doesn't value her own life enough. This, in tandem with her deep sense of justice, puts her in very dangerous situations for the sake of others. What would your character do if the whole party was upset with them? Étoile would either do everything in her power to fix it, even if it cost her her life. If unfixable, she'd probably try to banish herself from the group. Would your character be the kind to bully or be bullied? She would definitely be bullied. I'd say that she has been bullied. Her insecurity is visually obvious. So she pretty much has a bully me sticky note stuck to her back. Are they generally kind, or are they hardened, or somewhere in between? Deep down, she's very kind, but her experiences have made her misanthropic and jaded. Hopefully, the party can aid her in eroding some of that away. What goals does your character have that will intersect with the goals of others? Étoile wants everyone to be loved, to feel loved. Her deepest wish is for everyone to feel seen. This is why she writes. So through her work, others can relate to each other and then experience the love that comes from that. Her dream to become a renowned lyricist, poet, and singer will allow her the freedom to go with the party anywhere and still be able to provide her service of building community with her words. How will your character react to allies that actively protest their goals? Étoile would feel immensely rejected and devastated if someone she believed cared for her told her not to reach for glory as an artist. She would cry and probably yell at them and then go brood by herself for a while, writing in her notebook fervently. How will they react to opposition of their goals by allies in the party versus disliked allies in the party? If a party member she doesn't get along with disrespects her goals and art, she will just be annoyed and say something deeply true and hurtful to them back. However, if someone she was close with in the group did this, she would be devastated for days. She feels like it is so hard to make friends because she believes she's so awful. So when a friend she loves knocks her art, she shatters inside. Her depression then overwhelms her, and this becomes an issue for the party because they physically have to get her out of bed in the morning, remind her to eat and drink water. This goes on until something 5 times more positive is said about her or her words. She's beyond desperate for exterior validation. Segment 5, Conclusion. Thank you so much for continuing this journey of character building with me. Étoile is really starting to feel real. Like now I can easily imagine how she will react in different social situations. I love how much we've fleshed out already. If you are still following along, creating your own character, please put their whole thing that you have for them in the comments. I would love to see. And again, how do you feel about them so far? And what do you think of Étoile and her social habits? Thank you so much for watching. Next week on how to make an irreplaceable character, We will reunite for episode 3, How to Build Emotional Depth. Happy nightmares.